After a fatal car crash in 1995, there was an unknown body found in the wreckage, and this Jane Doe was wearing a Grateful Dead band tee. People eventually forgot about the case and was deemed unsolvable. The Grateful Doe was an American man who was hitchhiking when he was picked up by 21-year-old Michael Hager, but unfortunately Hager had crashed his van into a tree, and the two men were killed in the accident on June 26, 1995 in Greensville County, Virginia. The unidentified hitchhiker was an American man estimated to be between the ages of 15 to 21 years old. He had brown eyes with long curly brown or dark blonde hair that had been dyed red. There was a star tattoo identified on his upper left arm, and he was found wearing a Grateful Dead t-shirt on as well. Investigators had found Grateful Dead tickets in the young man's pocket dating June 24th and 25th. Due to the severity of the lacerations on the unidentified victim's face, mortuary photographs were not released to the public, although a facial reconstruction was later released. In 2012, another facial reconstruction was created by the National Center for Missing and Exploited People. The man who had originally sold the tickets found in Callahan's pocket did not remember the person to whom he had sold them. At least 221 missing people were ruled out as possible identities of the victim. Investigators exhausted all of their resources, questioned everyone they could, and the case eventually went cold, and his body remained nameless until 2015. A woman by the name of Layla Betts, a Redditor and Grateful Dead fan, came across the case and began researching and posting what she had found online. The case soon went viral thanks to Layla, and she was soon contacted by one of the Doe's former roommates, who helped her put together pieces of the puzzle and tried to solve the case. Layla found out that Doe's real name was Jason Callahan, and finally this case was solved after so many years. Coming in at number 4, we have the Hotel Zaza photo. In 2013, Reddit's internet detectives swarmed a subreddit for Houston, Texas, after a user by the username Joe Likes Music posted a mysterious thread asking insiders what the deal was with a bizarre hotel room at Hotel Zaza. Right when you walk in, it's not a welcoming room with the sinister paintings hanging above the concrete floor, what looks like a two-way mirror next to a bed that was chained to the wall, and a portrait of Stanford Financial Group president Jay Como, overlooking the whole room. Joe Likes Music's work colleague had booked room 322 and was supposedly told that that certain room wasn't meant to be booked at all, and I can see why. Rather than just saying, oh, it's just a weird themed room, the internet did what it does best and speculated wildly about the contents of the room. Some commenters thought the room numbers corresponded to the Skull and Bones secret society, while others assumed that the whole thing was a marketing scam. Vice got wind of this story and tracked down someone from the hotel to get these Redditors' questions about this creepy hotel room finally answered. Cryer Coots, the Houston hotel's head of e-marketing, brought light to some unanswered questions about the themed rooms and weird paintings. Coots stated that, like the other themed rooms Zaza prided itself on, the Hard Times room is just a kooky take on yet another theme: jail. Coots also said the Zaza collection started in Dallas, where our first property was built 10 years ago. Our owners and president were really the visionaries and pioneers behind concept suites, so when the Hotel Zaza Houston opened a few years later, they continued with the same conceptual design. Vice had brought up the theories about the odd 322 room, and Coots states the building was built almost 100 years ago, so when Zaza came in they wanted to use the existing structure. They didn't want to manipulate anything for design purposes. As a result, there are a couple of rooms throughout the property that are more compact. For 322, the idea was just to take a fun, unique spin on a jailhouse experience. So it has an exposed brick wall and a bed hanging from the wall with chains. It's just a fun way to decorate a small space. So there you have it, another mystery solved by Reddit users and internet sleuths. In at number 3, we have 11BX1371. In early 2015, a dark and mysterious video popped up on YouTube, and a Swedish tech blog that created a web mystery and Reddit users wanted to solve this odd discovery. This video was in black and white and 2 minutes in length. It depicts a person wearing what appears to be a plague doctor costume, walking and standing around an abandoned building with a forest visible through the former windows opening in the wall behind it. This creepy video was also accompanied by a soundtrack of loud bustling noise, and the masked figure holds up a hand with an irregularly blinking light. The film did not have any credits or any claims to ownership, and also contained many commonly used ciphers and encryption messages found hidden in the video and its sound spectrogram, as well as images of tortured and mutilated people. This creepy video soon went viral and Reddit users started to try and figure out more about this mysterious video. Most of the messages were decoded by participants in an ongoing Reddit thread, and the images sourced to notable murder investigations such as the Boston Strangler. These videos have been interpreted as implying a threat of bioterrorism against the United States, although it has also been speculated that the video is in reality a prank, a viral marketing stunt for an upcoming film or video game, or even a student film. Many were trying to find the origin and creator of this odd film, and it was found that John Erik Kreibleichler, the founding editor of the Swedish tech blog Gadget ZZ, received a DVD in the mail of this mysterious video on it, and when he couldn't decode the video, he posted it in his blog. John Erik wasn't the first to make this video public. Internet sleuths soon found a user account identified as AETBK, who had posted it to YouTube. The account only posts on the site. When this video gained traction, this AETBK was identified as Daniel from Spain, and he claims that he was sent this video from a woman he didn't know who told him that she had found it on a park bench. Another earlier version of the video was found posted on the paranormal website 4chan. 3 months after it was released and the most of the hype died down, a guy named Parker Warner Wright spoke to the Daily Dot claiming how he was the guy who created the video. The Daily Dot published an interview with Wright. He told reporter Mike Weiner that he was a US citizen who lives in Poland and that the videos were meant as an art project. After finishing the video in May 2015, he had left 3 copies, 2 on discs in a subway and park in Poland, and the last one posted to 4chan. Without these curious Reddit users, this mystery may have stayed unsolved and the true origin of the video would never have been known. In at number 2 we have Webdriver Torso. In 2014, online sleuths noticed that a YouTube account called Webdriver Torso was uploading with insane regularity, yet none of the videos seemed to make sense. The videos were varied in lengths and consisted with a lot of beeping. Theories about the channel's purpose varied wildly, with some even speculating that it was a government sending encrypted messages for the sake of espionage. However, a now deleted Reddit account had gotten to the bottom of the mystery, linking the channel to YouTube's parent company Google. Google actually eventually responded to the mounting speculation surrounding Webdriver Torso, explaining that the videos were used to determine to what extent the technical quality of videos had suffered when they were uploaded to the site, when compared to the originals. Created by Google on March 7, 2013, the channel began uploading videos in September of the same year, consisting of simple slides accompanied by beeps. It was brought to public attention in 2014, when it became a source of speculation for viewers who discovered it and noted 3 atypical videos featuring jokes, and that's when Reddit came across this and started trying to crack the case. The channel stopped posting videos at its same rate after 624,774 videos as of May 2017. The channel posted a few more videos in May, August and October 2018, followed by uploads in July and October 2019. The channel once again posted a video on November 22nd, 2021. Also, if you search Webdriver Torso into Google, the logo will begin behaving in an odd and mysterious shape-shifting manner. Now that the Reddit thread is deleted, leaves mystery in what Google was really trying to do with these videos, or if there really is a true sinister reason for these videos. In at number 1 we have the identity of the Strongsville skeleton. Back in February of 1975, 3 boys exploring the local woods in Strongsville, Ohio came across a skeleton and immediately contacted local authorities. The police were only able to determine that the cause of death was a gunshot wound to the head and that the body belonged to a white woman around the age of 20, but nothing more was known about this Jane Doe. After the case went cold in 2015, an amateur genealogy researcher was searching through cemetery records in Cleveland when she discovered a listing for unknown white female bones. The woman named Christina Skates began investigating the case herself and uploaded her findings to r/unsolved mysteries and another online forum called Web Sleuths. From there, an artist named Carl Koppelman created a reconstruction of what the deceased woman may have looked like based on images he had seen of the skull. The reconstruction started gaining traction and similarities were made between the Strongsville Jane Doe and a local Ohio woman named Lena Pagano by Carl and law enforcement, which led to her identification in 2018. DNA testing would confirm that the unidentified remains were in fact those of Linda. Linda Pagano was a woman from Akron, Ohio, who had been reported missing in 1974. She had an argument with her stepfather and left home, never to be seen again. Thanks to Reddit and Web Sleuths, this case was solved and the Jane Doe was finally identified and the case could finally be closed after more than 40 years.
Number 5. Hit and Run. A A hit and run is probably in the top 5 lamest things that can happen to you. Simpsons hit and run, however, fantastic. Someone hits your car and then doesn't have the decency to pull over and check in on what's wrong. Even more frustrating is to know that you'll probably never get to find out who did it unless you have the army of the internet on your side. A Reddit user named Meatheaded had experienced a hit and run and, frustrated and at a loss, turned to Reddit to try and find some answers with what little evidence he had to offer. When he posted a picture of a broken headlight to r/whatisthithing, he probably didn't expect as much of a response as he got, as it was kind of an odd question. But some 400 comments later, and Redditors had managed to accurately find the model of the car down to the make, model, and year, and all of this just off of a bit of broken plastic and glass. Meatheaded then took the information and ran it through a database and found a 91 gray Cadillac that had been reported stolen. Meatheaded sent the data over to the traffic crimes unit of his local police department, and were able to corroborate the data to track down the missing car and the suspect. Again, all just on a blurry photo of a broken headlight, which is downright incredible. Not only did they manage to find the car, but they also managed to connect it to a theft, busting 2 crimes with 1 post. Most Reddit posts don't get nearly that lucky. At most, you're getting a few upvotes, not solving a crime. And if you've got a love for scary videos, my friends, let us know. Subscribe to catch more of them every day, twice a day. Let's keep going. Number 4, phone scam. Now, not every crime has to be a grim one. Sometimes it's as simple as helping somebody get out of a scam. In 2019, an anonymous Redditor posted a complaint to the Reddit Bureau of Investigation subreddit, complaining that he had been scammed while trying to sell his phone privately. The Redditor had been in a bad situation, in dire straits, needed some quick cash, and was selling off an old phone to someone he'd met on a local listing site like Craigslist. He met the customer, who asked to meet late at night. Not thinking too much of it, the Redditor obliged, only to have his phone swiped quickly, and when he noticed the money he'd been given, he'd noticed that it was all counterfeit bills. Frustrated and scammed, he was helpless with no idea what to do. A Redditor reached out to the original poster and helped them track the number that he was given to contact the scammer. They searched through and found that it belonged to a 75-year-old man who didn't quite add up. So they did some more digging, and they found that the man who owned the phone number had one relative who happened to share a name with the scammer. Through more digging, the OP and Reddit discovered that the man had been arrested previously and had a suspended driver's license. Kind of amusingly, the original poster went back to the police with all this new information and discovered that the detectives had copied down the numbers of the scammer down completely wrong, so they were never going to be any help at all. 2 days later, they called him into the station to look at a lineup, and they'd found the phone scammer. His grandfather had been paying it off, and the relative he'd been looking into was the scammer's father. The detectives thanked him for his time, and they charged him with criminal fraud with the intent to deceive. The OP got it solved, he got the phone back, and the scammer got charged. And you got to hear about this story in this lovely video. So, win, win, win. Number 3, hit and run again. In August of 2018, a woman went out for a bike ride and tragically was struck fatally during a hit and run accident. There was nothing to tie a perpetrator to the scene, no cameras, no footage, no security footage. The only evidence that the police had found was a small black fragment of the vehicle that had struck the bicycle, but it looked indescribable. Not knowing what else to do, Washington State Troopers tweeted out a picture of the fragment in a desperate attempt that maybe the internet's collective hive mind might be able to help them identify anything since, well, they were plumb out of ideas. The post eventually made its way to Reddit, posting to r/whatisthithing, and we know from a couple minutes earlier in this video that r/whatisthithing is really good at identifying random car parts left behind at the scenes of hit and runs. Well, lo and behold, the Reddit intelligence once again took care of the impossible, and within a while, the unlikely hero named Jess Nuts posted that it was part of a headlamp of an '88 Chevy Silverado. The Redditor clarified that he was a Maryland state inspector for years, and part of each of his inspection process was a mandatory headlamp adjustment. So he explained that he has seen a lot of headlamps in his time, and immediately recognized what part of the car it should have belonged to. With this tip in hand, it was only a few days later, on August 14th, 2018, where the state troopers tweeted out that they were able to make an arrest after Reddit users identified the broken car part, leading them to the driver, who was swiftly apprehended. The driver had been driving very tired, allegedly, and didn't look back after he'd hit someone because he didn't want to see a body. Not really a great excuse. He was sentenced to 4 years. It may not provide all the closure for the family, but thanks to the help of some Reddit detectives, the case was able to be closed and some justice was able to be served. Number 2. Jane Doe. In 2014, Reddit user CallMeIce shared a story about an unidentified set of bones lying in a cemetery in Strongsville, Ohio. The user was researching another cold case at the time, amusingly, and was searching for genealogy records and came across the unidentified skeleton and became very intrigued by the mystery. Why was there never an effort in over 40 years to make an identification as to who these bones belong to? Wishing to right a wrong, CallMeIce posted to r/unresolved mysteries in the hopes of getting some resolved mysteries. The Strongsville Jane Doe, as she was known, was first found in 1975 by 3 boys who were exploring a nearby forest. They found a skeleton lying on a sandbar, mostly intact, but missing some of its jaw. Naturally, the bones were reported, and it was thought to belong to a woman estimated aged 18 to 25, who had suffered a fatal gunshot approximately 5 months before being discovered. Detectives at the time checked her across several missing women cases, but were unable to make any connections or draw up any significant evidence, and the trail went completely cold for decades. Until 2014, when CallMeIce started to look into it. CallMeIce got in touch with the cemetery and managed to get access to the original autopsy files and a photo of the skull. She sent it over to a digital reconstruction artist, who then made up a mock-up. Now, nothing too much happened for a while, until in 2016, the forensic artist who had done the reconstruction came across a listing on the NamUs website, that's the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System, of a woman named Linda Pagano, who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances around 1974. She'd come home from a concert and gotten into an argument with her stepfather and supposedly left to go visit her mother, where she was never seen again after. The forensic artist then contacted the medical examiner's office and pulled Linda's dental records, and wouldn't you know it, she matched the Strongsville Jane Doe to Linda Pagano. Although the identity of the attacker was never found, the family was able to find the smallest closure in finally knowing what happened to Linda Pagano, and it never would have happened without a Redditor bringing it back up. Number 1. The Grateful Doe. One of the more notable examples of Reddit solving a cold case was a 20-year mystery as to identify the body recovered from a car crash that was too damaged to be identified. In 1995, a Volkswagen van was found crashed into the trees off of a highway in Virginia. The driver was able to be identified, but his passenger unfortunately wasn't. A pair of Grateful Dead tickets in his pocket led to him being dubbed the Grateful Doe as a pseudonym. For 20 tragic years, the man was never identified, and the case was completely cold, with nary so much as a link. Until a Redditor caught wind of the case and was intrigued by it and opened it back up herself. The user then made a subreddit specifically for this case called r/Grateful Doe, and suddenly there was all this renewed interest from the greater collective of people working pro bono to try and find any connections they could. Digital reconstructions of the face, composite sketches, all this. Eventually, this caught the attention of someone who was sent an image of one of the composite sketches and said that it looked identical to his old roommate. After getting in contact with the roommate, he pointed the subreddit into the right direction, saying that the Grateful Doe's name, he thought, was Jason Callahan. Reddit then tracked down Shannon Callahan, Jason's half-sister, who upon seeing the composite sketch was moved and offered to take a DNA test. The DNA test confirmed everyone's hypothesis, and after 2 decades, an ice-cold case with absolutely no leads was able to be closed, and Jason's family finally got a little bit of relief to know what happened to their missing relative.
Coming in at number 5, we've got the body under the bed. I don't know if this counts as an urban legend or a universal experience. Everyone has, no exceptions, checked under their bed for monsters or something of the like. There are countless stories of robbers, murderers, doppelgangers, and assorted fireflies hanging out beneath people's mattresses, but nobody ever expects it to come true. At least, not after graduating grade school. But this is exactly what happened to a hapless couple trying to relax at a hotel after a long day. Thankfully, there wasn't a living creature lying in wait beneath the bed frame, but the body below wasn't much better. The couple shuffled into their room and immediately noticed that something was off. It smelled real bad. Corpse-like even. If you checked into a hotel room and the first thing you noticed was the distinct odor of rotting flesh, you'd be upset. So the couple called down to the front desk and complained about the stench. After moving the duo to a less rotten room, the smell was investigated, leading to the discovery of a dead body beneath the bed. The state of the body also implied that it had been lying there for weeks as different guests stayed in the room. I'm sure they were pleased as punch when they discovered that their hotel stay involved an undiscovered cadaver underneath their sleeping heads. What do you even do as a hotel staff at that point? Do you own up to the corpse being under the bed, or do you just hope the story fizzles out? Either way, the classic myth of the below the bed body has been proven true, at least in this case. Is it worth checking below the hotel bed now? Coming in at number 4, we've got rats in the toilet bowl. I'll preface this entry with an unfortunate truth. Crocodiles can't actually survive in the New York sewer system. I know it's hard to take, but it's true. Even if folks kept them as pets and then flushed them when they were babies, they wouldn't survive long during New York winters, and we wouldn't see them crawling up through the pipes anytime soon. Plus, living in filth is bad for most creatures. Creatures that aren't rats, I guess. Here is another unfortunate truth. Rats have been found in people's toilets after crawling around in the plumbing. And they're not going to be too friendly after making that trip either. See, drain plumbing is the perfect size for a mangy rodent to wriggle through, especially if there's scavenging undigested food matter left behind after your last trip to the porcelain throne. Rats are often attracted to sewage lines thanks to these particular waste particles, and will sometimes travel along to the very end of the line being your toilet bowl. They're very good swimmers, you know. It's okay to have a complete and total mental breakdown if this happens to you. Nobody expects you to keep it together if a sewage-covered rodent places itself inches from your private bits. They're not quite as suave as Roddy the Rat from Flushed, unfortunately. There's one tale where a woman in Virginia got bit on the butt by one of these spelunking scrabblers. So yeah, check your toilet bowl before you hunker down, unless you're cool with some tiny teeth on your taint. And if you do end up seeing one, treat it like any other filthy floater and flush it. Coming in at number 3, we've got reappearing cities. To be fair, this is more of a legend than an urban one, but it's fascinating just the same. Legendary lost cities are a staple in the imaginations of explorers. El Dorado, Aztlan, Atlantis, wouldn't it be incredible to find them? Imagine the discoveries that might be made, the lost history recovered. Although many have sought these locations out, few have succeeded, which is why it's so exciting when one does reappear. Way back in the 18th century, a British tourist wrote down the story of a group of temples hidden under the sea in southern India. It seemed that a wicked flood subsumed 6, leaving the 7th still standing on the shore. For centuries, this legend stood as people told the tale of the curtailed temples. Then, following a destructive tsunami in 2004, the temples were revealed to the world once more. The coastline receded far enough that people could finally get a closer look at them, drowned so many years ago. The tsunami itself was devastating, so I'm not sure if it was the best trade. And let's be real, hidden temples often contain curses waiting to be unleashed upon the world. Something tells me that these making a triumphant return might bring some additional dread to the surface. Nobody go looking for hidden treasure now, you hear? Coming in at number 2, we've got the Maine hermit. All the scariest stories come from New England, just as Stephen King and H.P. Lovecraft. With all of the iconic additions to the horror canon these two provided alone, there are enough urban legends to fuel Boston's surroundings for generations. But if you look a little closer at the yarns these legends are spinning, you'll realize that a lot of them just simply can't be true. At least not in the way that we could ever understand. There are no deadlights, no Pennywise the Clown, no demonic cornfields or Wendigo-infested graveyards, no mysterious fishman hybrids, no Miskatonic University, no Arkham. If you have proof to the contrary, please let me know. I would love to be proven wrong on this. But for now, we'll have to look to an actual local legend that was inevitably proven true. If you were the outdoorsy type, you might have made it out to Central Maine's North Pond area. You might have noticed that some of your stuff was disappearing without explanation. This kind of behavior went on for decades, with vacationers, cottagers, and campers all experiencing some sort of disappearing supplies. This led to folks believing that a single entity was sticking around and stealing their stuff. And guess what? They were eventually proven right. It was discovered that a man by the name of Christopher Knight had been living alone in the woods for upwards of 25 years. That's a long time to be living alone unbothered, but good old Chris Knight knew exactly what he was doing. Living off the land, largely, but also committing small-scale steals whenever he needed something a little extra. And he's probably living the life, too. In the end, he was a pretty reasonable guy. Most folks would assume that hermits are volatile and dangerous, but Chris seemed to have a good head on his shoulders. When confronted by a warden, he admitted that he was behind something like 40 robberies a year. An honest hermit, who knew? And finally, at number 1, we've got corpse decorations. It's a classic campfire tale that has evolved with the times. A secret serial killer uses the bodies of his victims to decorate an abode, or a twisted mortician convinces kids to gallivant beneath pieces of people on Halloween. It's been done in movies, on TV, and in video games galore, but there's no way this actually happens, right? Well, actually, it did once. It wasn't as malicious as many of the tales make it seem, though. There wasn't some crazed lunatic hanging a real body from the eaves just to get away with it, no. Instead, it was an accidental accentuation. Way back in the early 20th century, there was a criminal by the name of Elmer McCurdy. After dying, McCurdy was embalmed and carted around as a sideshow attraction all across Texas. People came from far and wide to see the preserved body of a notorious criminal. Funeral parlors, carnivals, and all sorts of cavalcades of perversion showed off the body. It was so well traveled that for a while, people totally lost track of it. Eventually, over 50 years later, the body made its return as a funhouse prop. Somehow, an employee of the New Pike amusement park saw this preserved corpse and said, "Yep, that's a fake body, all right." So Elmer went up and stayed up for quite a while. In fact, the only reason he was discovered to be real was that a crew member from a movie being shot on location tried to adjust the body for a shot. In doing so, Elmer's arm came right off. The man was just doing his job and ended up tearing a dead man's limb from its body. Oh my. So while it's unlikely that creepy Mr. Jenkins down the street is hanging real corpses from his oak tree, you better double check your props before putting them up. My oh my, the things we take at face value can be astonishing. Most legends are staunchly in the unprovable category, but when they do have some truth, it can be a little jarring, eh?
Coming in our number 5 spot, MOM.AVI. Yeah, this one's just a whole lot of confusing. This video is a minute long and basically consists of someone wearing a mask and just creepily opening their mouth every now and then. It's shot in black and white, and that's all there is to it. So who knows why it's out there, but yeah, definitely scary. In at number 4, Little Baby's Ice Cream. Yeah, I've talked about this video more than I'd like to admit. So this was shot for an ice cream commercial, but why someone would want to advertise their company with this is a mystery to me, so it belongs on this list. First things first, what is with the name? It just doesn't work. That was their first mistake. Their second mistake was making this terrifying ad. So you would assume this ad was meant to encourage people to buy this ice cream, but I'm going to go ahead and say that it did the exact opposite. In the video, we have someone covered in ice cream staring wide-eyed into the camera, and then the person has this big ol' spoon that they start to eat the ice cream off of their head with. And the whole time there's a narrator which just amplifies the creep factor. This is what I'm talking about.
When you eat Little Baby's ice cream, you'll wink and nod and hug and high-five each other with great enthusiasm.
At number 3, Mac's Headroom. This video was actually a newscast hack that happened back in 1987 at a Chicago station during a news broadcast. For people watching at home, what happened was the screen turned black for about 15 seconds. Then a person appeared on the screen wearing a Mac's Headroom mask. They were sitting in front of a rotating piece of metal, and there was this humming noise. After about 30 seconds, the technicians at the stations were able to stop the pirated broadcast. In that same night, a fellow station, WTTW, were also hacked by the same guys. This time the hackers were on for 90 seconds. In this broadcast, the hackers were referencing advertising slogans, and the man in the mask pulled down his pants and was spanked by another person who was wearing a French maid's outfit as they yelled, "They are coming to get me." Yeah, no clue what the point of any of this was. Unfortunately, the stations were unable to trace the signal, and the identity of the hackers remained a mystery to this day. But people are certain that the person who did this was someone in the Chicago broadcasting community, because the technologies required to pull off a huge hack like this wasn't available to average consumer at the time. And at number 2, Catacombs of Paris. Yeah, this is one terrifying place. I know it's a tourist spot, but I don't know if I'd actually go into it if I had the chance. I mean, it's freaky, and learning about the story definitely doesn't help. The catacombs are located beneath the streets of France, and they are made up of millions of human remains. For obvious reasons, many people have believed that the catacombs are cursed. Outside of visiting hours, entry is illegal and all entrances have been blocked off. In this video, we see a man who sneaks down into the catacombs and begins to look around. Now, I think it's important to point out that there are 400 miles of tunnels within the catacombs, and many of these passages lead to lower levels, so it's extremely easy to get lost. Throughout the video, we see human-like symbols on the walls and a lot of bones. At one point in the video, the man starts to breathe heavily and pick up speed, as if he's running away from something. The camera then falls to the floor and you can hear a splash of water. The scariest part about all of this was that this man was never found. And at number 1, Elisa Lam. This is truly a terrifying story that took place in 2003 and is still unsolved to this day. Elise was staying in Hotel Cecile in LA. In this video, we see her get into an elevator. The door doesn't seem to be closing, and we see her peeking out, and at one point, she's almost hiding behind the door, as if she's scared of someone seeing her. She then steps outside the elevator and appears to be talking to someone, and then she moves out of frame, and that's the last anyone saw of her. A few weeks later, she was found naked naked in the hotel's water tank after a handyman went to check on the tank after guests were complaining that the water tasted funny. Toxicology reports were done and revealed that there was nothing in her system at the time of her death. There was also no evidence of trauma to her body, so how she died is still a mystery to this day.
Kicking off at number 5, Paulette Jaster. In May 1979, a 25-year-old woman, Paulette Jaster, had disappeared from a small town in Michigan where she lived with her mother and 6 siblings after being tormented by her own mental health issues. The family were distraught and searched endlessly for Paulette, but to no avail, left with no explanation as to her ultimate fate. They were left in the dark for nearly 35 years until Sharon Derrick, a forensic anthropologist, was examining old autopsy pictures of an unidentified woman whose body had been buried in a pauper's grave in Houston, Texas. Sometime in January of 2014, Sharon Derrick had received a tip from the internet, a web sleuth who had been scouring a database of unmarked graves and unidentified deaths when they noticed similarities between the Paulette Jaster missing persons report. After pursuing the lead, Sharon managed to match photographic evidence of 3 distinct freckles on the Jane Doe's face to that of Paulette Jaster, which tragically revealed that she'd been killed in a hit-and-run incident on March 28, 1980. Sadly, Paulette's life had came to an end, but after 35 years, her family could finally grieve their missing daughter. Swinging in at number 4, Jalopnik. Here's an interesting one, and of all places, was solved by Jalopnik, which, come on, is a great word. Jalopnik, an automotive fan forum that has a massive user base of motor fanatics who had their moment to shine back in 2012 following a fatal hit-and-run incident in Waynesboro, Virginia. Tragically, 56-year-old Betty Marcel Wheeler was walking near her home when she was hit by a vehicle and killed. The vehicle had fled the scene, but police had found a part of the vehicle lying by the roadside. Unable to identify it, they posted it to Jalopnik, seeking the aid of car enthusiasts in the hope that it would lead to the prosecution of the perpetrators. And guess what? It did. Within minutes of the Waynesboro Police Department asking the internet for help, several users had already came forward and identified the part as belonging to a Ford F-150, which swiftly led to the arrest of 2 men, bringing justice to Betty Marcel Wheeler and her family. Next up at number 3, Grateful Doe. The unsolved mystery of Grateful Doe had perplexed the internet for years. In 1995, a 21-year-old man named Michael E. Hager and an unidentified hitchhiker were killed in a car accident in rural Virginia. Hager's family were devastated, but no one mourned for the John Doe hitchhiker, as the authorities were unsuccessful in identifying exactly who he was. The only thing to identify him was a tie-dyed Grateful Dead t-shirt, eventually giving him the nickname Grateful Doe. The case went cold. Almost 20 years later, a Redditor named Layla Betts from Queensland, Australia, stumbled upon the case of Grateful Doe, using a photographic reconstruction of his face from the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children. Slowly, with the help of fellow internet sleuths, Layla began piecing together Grateful Doe's identity, which eventually led her to being contacted by a guy named Steve, claiming to be the former roommate of the unknown man. Turned out, he was right, and his real identity was Jason Callahan from Illinois, who had gone missing after following his favourite band, the Grateful Dead, on their nationwide tour. For over 20 years, Grateful Doe had remained unknown, but thanks to the hard-working curiosity of the internet, he was finally laid to rest. Coming in at number 2, Abraham Shakespeare. Now, it sounds like great news winning the lottery, right? But you'd be surprised the lengths that people will go to when faced with the green-eyed monster, as is the case of Abraham Shakespeare, a 47-year-old Florida man that won $30 million on the lottery and would ultimately end up murdered and buried in a shallow grave. After collecting his winnings and paying off his family's mortgage, Abraham was approached by a woman named Doris D.D. Moore, claiming to be a financial advisor with the intention of helping Abraham manage his newfound wealth. Well, her real intention was to take the money for herself, and after months of lies and deceit, she shot Abraham twice and buried him under a cement slab. For months, local police suspected Moore as the killer, but didn't have enough evidence to convict her. The case got backlogged for a while and was put under the scrutiny of the Web Sleuths Forum, a site dedicated to amateur e-detectives. Well, it gets crazier, because during the Web Sleuths probe, Moore logged onto the forum anonymously, compelled to defend her reputation, but didn't take into account that crucial little thing known as an IP address. Web Sleuths co-owner Trisha Griffin called Moore's bluff and submitted the IP data to the police, which ultimately led to her conviction, where she was sentenced to life in prison. Don't browse the forum like that. No. And finally, our number 1 spot, the skull in the bucket. and this is a bit of a roller coaster to say the least. But the perfect example of what one determined internet detective can pull off with enough time on their hands. Back in 2001, a retired trucker named Roland Telfer noticed something weird at Missouri truck stop, an abandoned plastic bucket filled with concrete. Thinking to use it to feed his pigs back home, he dumped the concrete on his farm, but it wasn't until months later, when the concrete had crumbled away, that he realised what it really was. A human head. Eventually it turned out that it was the head of Gregory May, a 56-year-old tattoo artist that was murdered in 2001 by his best friend Douglas DeBruyne over May's incredibly rare Civil War memorabilia. What followed was a tragic, intricate tale of murder, but DeBruyne couldn't be tried for one simple reason. At the time, the skull wasn't verified to a person, and without a body, DeBruyne couldn't be connected to the murder. Now enter Ellen Leach, an amateur internet sleuth who went to arduous lengths in connecting the skull to that of Gregory May, and eventually provided enough evidence to tie the two together, resulting in the conviction and life imprisonment of his killer. Great job, Ed.
In at 5, Jigsaw's master plan. At the end of Saw 3, John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, died, which left fans wondering where the franchise would go from there. Well, we got our answer, as it was revealed that Jigsaw had a handful of proteges who continued his legacy. However, the biggest question of all was how the films all tied together, aside from Jigsaw's presence in the film. YouTuber Toberune took to the internet to give his take on the franchise and what was actually going on. Back in 2009, the YouTuber uploaded a video which detailed his theory that Lawrence Gordon from the first Saw film became the apprentice of Jigsaw, with evidence to back his claims up. As we know, traps require a lot of setup time in order to hide keys or objects before the captives awake. Lawrence was of course a surgeon, and one particular trap involved a man having to cut his eye open to pull a key out from inside. So who better to place the key there than a surgeon? And Toberune was correct with his assumption, predicting the twist all the way back in 2009. Props. Coming in at number 4, The Simpsons. Once Donald Trump became president back in 2016, many Simpsons fans started to notice a trend that involved The Simpsons predicting the future, including Trump's presidency, which has led to speculation that the show has insider knowledge on the future events of the world. However, one YouTuber, All Time Conspiracies, compiled all the evidence and brought the theory to life on the streaming platform. In one episode, The City of New York vs. Homer Simpson, Lisa holds up a magazine that shows the price of a bus ticket to New York, just $9, with the Empire State on the left and the Twin Towers on the right. However, due to the positioning of the 9 and the Twin Towers, it clearly spells out 9/11, almost predicting the events that would later unfold. In a flash-forward episode of The Simpsons, we see Lisa become president and is forced to deal with the leftover damage from the previous president. And who was that president? Donald Trump. Chills. In at 3, Time Traveler. Charlie Chaplin's film The Circus was released all the way back in 1928, but it made waves just a few years back when viewers picked up on something a little odd in one of the scenes. A woman can be seen walking by holding something to her ear that looks very similar to a cell phone, a device that certainly wasn't around back in the 20s, that's for sure. So of course many flocked to the internet stating that the woman was a time traveler, because of course. YouTuber John's Wacky World was somewhat of a skeptic and took to YouTube to explain what he thought the woman was holding. He believes it to be a hearing aid from circa 1925, which back then was much more bulky than they are now. The same day the video was uploaded, another user, explain.exe, posted to YouTube to theorize that the woman was in fact just holding her hair. I don't know though, what do you guys believe? Let me know down below. In at 2, Medicine Man. 11BX1371, that is the name of a very creepy video that was uploaded to YouTube and seemed to show a man dressed in some sort of Medicine Man style outfit, as bizarre sounds and imagery play throughout the video. 5 months prior to this, a YouTuber also posted the video to his account and was surprised to see it garner so many views and comments. He claimed that he had been anonymously sent the video, so folks of course went digging, and found an even earlier version of the video that was posted to a paranormal board on 4chan. Now another YouTuber went even further, digging into the audio and finding hidden messages in its waveform, such as the words, "You are already dead," as well as the face of a screaming woman displayed within the noise of the audio. One person that analysed the footage was YouTuber Rainbot, and during her research she was able to debunk most of the theories surrounding the video. And while looking at the video, she discovered that most of the footage was still frames from low-budget horror films. Well, there we go. And finally, coming in at number 1, Jason Stevens. Back in March 2016, 36-year-old Jason Stevens disappeared and was last seen leaving his job. Police and family hunted for the missing man, but to no avail. About a year later, YouTuber Matthew Bilodeau made a video that documented him interviewing random homeless people in LA. Now, one individual in particular caught his interest. He dreamt of getting off the streets and getting certified so he could work on luxurious cars. When Matthew left the man and went home to edit his video, he began to notice that the man was familiar to him, and doing some minor detective work concluded that the man was in fact Jason Stevens. So Matthew contacted Jason's old boss, who informed Matthew that Jason had been a very talented worker, which surprised everyone when he just up and left. Matthew wanted to help out Jason's friends and family, so once again Matthew took to the streets of LA and tracked down Jason once again, who explained to the YouTuber that he up and left after an incident at work resulted in a nasty hand injury, leaving him only able to work on a computer. This wasn't what Jason wanted, so he up and left, headed for California to further his career.
Coming in our number 5 spot, NASA hack. Back in 2002, a man named Gary McKinnon was doing some research on the existence of aliens. You know, as one does. But McKinnon took things a little too far when he decided to hack into NASA to try to look up the information that they had on this subject. Because, as we all know, there's so many theories that NASA knows aliens exist, but they're trying to convince people that that's not the case. Yeah, so many conspiracy theories. When trying to get into the computer, McKinnon found a remote desktop connection that had no password protecting it. So obviously he did a little digging. There he found an image of some sort of flying aircraft, but it didn't look like any aircraft he had ever seen before. When the NASA employees noticed what he saw, his access was cut off. So yeah, pretty obvious that NASA didn't want whatever he saw to be seen by the public. Authorities apparently wanted to throw him in jail, claiming that he destroyed government computers and caused a lot of damage. But apparently these accusations were never proven and McKinnon was allowed to go free. And at number 4, Webdriver Torso. This YouTube page hit the internet in September of 2013. On this account, a video was uploaded every minute of every day, and they would last exactly 11 seconds each. Then towards the end, there were a few that lasted 25 minutes. The videos would be filled with red and blue rectangles and a strange beeping sound. Originally, people had no clue what these videos meant or why so many of them were being posted. One conspiracy theorist linked them to number stations, used during the Cold War for communicating with spies. But then in 2014, Google revealed that this was actually a quality test account. But many people aren't buying this. For one thing, it took them a whole year to say this. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that one. Also, many people are saying that these videos must serve a darker purpose. At number 3, A858. This made its way onto the internet in 2011, and it's one of Reddit's most puzzling subreddits. So basically this page is dedicated to long and confusing codes that are written in a hexadecimal. This numerical notation system is used in computer programs. So many people have tried to solve these codes, even teaming up with others to try and figure them out. The A858 used to post daily, and very few of their posts have actually been deciphered. But when someone does manage to crack the code, it's usually a random phrase or something else pretty trivial that's being revealed. The meanings of these codes and their purposes in the first place is still a mystery to this day. Maybe the answer lies in one of the uncrackable codes. Coming in at number 2, the Plague Doctor video. So yeah, this video is very strange and altogether creepy. It first appeared online in May of 2015. Basically, the video is of this person in a plague doctor's mask, and they are doing some strange movements in an abandoned building. There's some Morse code going on, an odd static tone, and some jump cuts of other videos spliced in. The whole point of this video is unclear, but it's creepy nonetheless. This video is titled 011011101010101, etc. Yeah, it goes on for a while. This binary code translates to Muert, which in Spanish means death. Of course, there's a thread devoted to figuring out exactly what's going on in this video, and they revealed that the video apparently contains the coordinates to the White House, some chess moves, disturbing images depicting violence against women, and other random threatening messages. The source of this video is unknown, as the posters claim no connection to the video and maintain that they did not create the video. So yeah, no one knows the point of this video, but nonetheless, it's pretty creepy. Alright, and before we jump into our number 1 spot, I just want to remind you guys to please show us some love by giving this video a big thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. And once again, stay tuned until the end of the video as I will be answering your questions. And if you would like to be featured in an upcoming video, then make sure you leave those questions below. And in at number 1, Anonymous. Yes, this is definitely one that needed to be on this list. We've all heard about this group, but if for some reason you are unfamiliar with them, Anonymous was founded in 2003, and it's a group made up of self-proclaimed hacktivists who have basically become a household name over the the past several years. This group's goal is to go online and attack governments, government institutions, government agencies, corporations, and the Church of Scientology. The people of this group say that they have a greater good purpose behind their attacks. Most of their attacks took place in 2011 and 2015. They will usually flood websites, forcing them to shut down. The group is also skilled when it comes to finding something their target is sensitive about and using that to their advantage. They recently declared war on ISIS, they flooded its associated websites with porn and shut down many pages for good. What's even crazier is the anonymous members have been able to keep their identities a secret even after all of these years. The police and government have tried to find out who the members of this group are since they first came out, and still 15 years later they have no idea.
Number 5 on this list is the tattoo artist. In today's world, you don't always need to be a cop or investigator to solve crimes. With the internet and the fact that literally everything that we do is documented at all times, people are more than capable of solving a crime from the comfort of their own home. That's kind of what went down in this case. Ranker writes, tattoo artist and 19th century antiques collector Greg May was murdered, and it took a year for police and federal investigators to prove that he was dead. All they knew was that his former roommate had stolen his $70,000 collection. It wasn't until they were contacted by Ellen Leach, an e-detective who was trying to solve what she thought was a different murder with information about a severed head found in a bucket full of concrete. Once they got contacted by her, they were able to charge the ex-roommate with murder. So first off, this crime is absolutely horrifying. It's honestly the nature of this crime which has rocketed this internet case onto this list. Like, if I actually start to try and imagine dying by a chainsaw, it just kind of makes me feel ill inside. And what's even more sick about this is that if it wasn't because of the internet, the killer would have got away with it. Ellen Leach, however, is a pro at doing what I suggested earlier, solving crimes from the comfort of her own home. She literally is an internet detective and has dedicated herself to the craft. From my findings, it seems that Ellen Leach has been instrumental in not only this case, but in solving 7 other cases around the United States. That is a sizable amount of influence that Ellen's got, and a lot of families can thank her for doing what she does. I personally can't even imagine how taxing it must be sitting at your desk literally the entire day trying to find a chainsaw killer. Definitely not the sort of profession that I could do, but really happy that we've got people like Ellen out here that can. Number 4 on this list is the hitman. Alright, so this case is honestly less terrifying and more just stupid if you ask me. If you're a hitman, then you have to be extremely discreet. After all, you're literally selling your services to a buyer who will want you to take the life of another human being. This obviously isn't even remotely close to being legal or morally right, and secrecy has got to be the name of the game. That's why it was absolutely ridiculous when a guy, actually unnamed, made a Facebook account to advertise his skills as a contract killer. He was smart enough to use a fake name, so he named this Facebook account Anthrax, but clearly this level of intelligence didn't translate to a visual medium. My dude literally used his own face in the photos of the profile. Well, obviously it didn't take very long before the police got wind of this and arrested this guy. They were able to do so before he was contracted to kill anyone, and honestly never even found out if he was a real contract killer or just a loser in a basement trying to mess with people. Now, what makes this story scary though is that this is just the tip of the iceberg. This was one dumb guy who posted stuff on Facebook, and the Facebook community responded very quickly and took him down. But there are way more intelligent people than this guy in the world who are real and trained contract killers using the internet. Facebook, Craigslist, eBay, they've all seen people pose as other people and use their platform as a space for evil. These are also only the platforms that we're all familiar with. I've never seen it for myself personally, but apparently the dark web has tons of sites where you can literally find reputable hitmen at the click of a button. The internet can occasionally be great and solve some crimes, but don't get it twisted, guys. The internet can also host those same crimes as well. Number 3 on this list is the Grateful Doe hitchhiker. This is one of the most famous internet cases of all time. What Culture says, in 1995, 21-year-old student Michael Hager picked up a 19-year-old hitchhiker traveling from a Grateful Dead concert. The two were making their way to their respective destinations, Hager to his mother's house in South Carolina, when something caused the Volkswagen transporting the men to crash into a tree. Both died. As Hager didn't know the boy who was riding with him, his family didn't know either. When they came to identify Hager's remains, none could identify the hitchhiker, and nobody came came out to report him missing. Since his real identity was unknown, he was given the name Grateful Doe because of the Grateful Dead concert. There were reconstructions made of Grateful Doe's face and a number of small distinctive tattoos that people could work to identify. However, for many years there was no luck until Australian Reddit user Layla Betts started posting about Grateful Doe online, leading to the creation of the subreddit Grateful Doe. Someone saw the posts and claimed that the reconstructions looked like his former roommate. That roommate was named James Callahan. With Callahan's photos beginning to circulate online, his mother came forward and revealed that her son had in fact gone missing 20 years earlier. The police were later able to confirm that Grateful Doe was in fact James Callahan. I think what makes this so scary is when you consider the perspective of the mother. Her son goes off to a concert and just literally never comes home ever. You can't call him, you can't email him, you have absolutely no way of knowing who he was with last. Like, that would have been pure mental agony for years. And as horrible as it sounds, probably the news that he died, that might have been a bit of a relief to her. Even though that's a horrible thought, at the very least, she can get closure and move on with her life. So at least we can thank the internet for that one. Number 2 on this list is the murder of Crystal Theobald. Crystal Theobald was taken from the world far too soon. Her family, obviously extremely distraught, would not rest until justice was served. What Culture writes, after Theobald was shot dead at age 24, her mother and cousin made a fake MySpace profile in her image. They used it to find the identities of a group of local gang members who they believed were involved in her killing, luring them in with Theobald's picture and then catfishing them in the messages. By doing this, they were able to eventually find the owner of the car that had been at the scene of her death, the people in the car, and the events leading up to the fatal shootout. Police weren't too happy with the family's amateur sleuthing, but in the end, they were able to find useful information. With the family's investigation, they were able to find who was responsible for Crystal's death and make some arrests and convictions, giving the family some of the closure that they needed. I can't even begin to comprehend how hard that process would have been for the family searching for their daughter's own killers. Also, it's a little questionable to me that the police weren't too happy with the amateur sleuthing. Like, I don't claim to know anything about investigating, and I will be the first one to admit that I am super ignorant towards the process and procedures in catching a killer. However, you would think that the police should be happy with the family, especially considering the only reason they ended up getting to the bottom of the crime was because of what the family did. I guess the family didn't really care what the police thought about it though, because they needed to find their daughter's killers. Thanks to the power of the internet, they were able to do so. And finally, number 1 on this list is Grandma's Code. This one is super eerie, and even though it comes to a happy ending, still a bit creepy. Jana's grandmother passed away from cancer over 20 years ago. Before she passed, she wrote this encoded note. She left it for her family, but didn't give them a code or anything like that to solve it. Obviously, if the family couldn't solve it for 20 years though, it was a pretty freaking hard puzzle. That's when, enter in, Reddit. Jana posted the encryption on Reddit, and I kid you not, literally less than half an hour goes by and somebody solved it. It turned out that the encryption was actually a code for several prayers. Each letter stood for the first letter in a word in what would amount to a different prayers or messages to God. She didn't say anything crazy or anything like that, just a bunch of prayers to God as her final words. But what's insane and really creepy about this is she was basically talking to us from the grave. If you think about it, she sent this message 20 years ago while she was alive, and we only received it right now. Pretty eerie if you ask me. Number 5 on this list is the case of Carolee Sadie Ashby. A horrible and scary case that took over 50 years to solve and was only ever solved due to the internet. What Culture writes, solving a mystery that's been plaguing a family for almost half a century can sometimes start with something as simple as a Facebook post, and that's what just happened in solving a 1968 hit and run case. After going down to the shops on Halloween, 4-year-old Carolee Sadie Ashby was hit by a drunk driver who didn't so much as stop to check on her. The case had haunted Russ Johnson of the Fulton Police Department for years, and no leads eventually led to the case to go cold. On retiring, he took a chance, posting details of the incident to a Facebook page that dealt with local history. From there, a woman reached out to him and they had their first lead in decades. The woman used to live in the area and told Johnson about how local man Douglas Parkhurst had asked her to give him an alibi if the police were to speak to her. She explains that she rejected his request, not knowing what he might be needing an alibi for, but secretly suspecting it could be related to Carolee's death. All those years later, the police department reopened the case and questioned Parkhurst again. Clearly, having a few decades to let his guilt stew had changed Parkhurst's outlook, and he admitted to killing the girl, having been drinking that night before getting behind the wheel. This was 50 years removed, and so the statute of limitation had changed, and therefore Parkhurst actually couldn't even be charged. This was really sad for the family of this girl, obviously, but at the very least, they discovered who did it. This is super real and just so sad, honestly. A girl as young as that to be taken so soon and unexpectedly at the hands of a drunk driver. It's good to see the internet figure this one out, but the best case scenario would have been that it just never happened at all. Number 4 on this list is Sam Whitehorn. Okay, so I'll be honest guys, this one isn't quite as terrifying as some of the other ones on this list, but it really hit home with me, so it's making a list. I am a massive Green Bay Packers fan, have been for years, and will be for years to come. That team has already put me through so much emotional agony, but it seems that fellow Packers fan Sam Whitehorn got some physical agony instead. Sam was in Portland walking around with a Green Bay Packers beanie on. The altercation happened when several Seattle Seahawks fans approached him and started getting very aggressive. It escalated and they beat Sam senselessly, sending him to the ER. Just as quickly as they came though, they were gone, and with no idea who they were, it was impossible to direct the police to them. Well, Sam's girlfriend posted this story on the internet and it started making waves. So much so that the Green Bay Packers organization themselves stumbled upon it and used their resources to post it everywhere. To my knowledge, this led to the discovery of these men and ultimately their arrest. Sports is great fun and it's a roller coaster of a ride, but these guys took it to a place that it never should have gone. Number 3 on this list is the discovery of William Earl Molt. William Earl Molt was a man who lived in Florida back in the 90s. On November 7th, 1997, William went missing, and it literally took 22 years before anyone found him. The case had gone completely cold, and nobody had any idea what the heck happened to Will. Enter in the internet and Google Earth. A technology that literally wasn't even around back when William was alive was the thing that finally found him. William was found immersed in water in his vehicle behind some houses in Florida. Behind these houses in Florida, they have a backyard, and then a little bit behind that is just a tiny lake out back. It really isn't that far at all from the homes, but the water is mucky and gross. Barry Fay is the person who lives in the house that's closest to where William was found, and it was a neighbor to Barry who was on Google Earth when they spotted the car. The police went to go check it out, and sure enough, they found an extremely calcified car and the remains of William Earl Molt. He must have been driving down this road on the evening of November 7th, swerved into the lake, and done so in a fashion that nobody recognized. It's impossible to say whether it was the crash that killed him, or if he drowned in the lake, or if he was already dead behind the wheel when he drove into the water. Either way, I think what's super scary about this case is the fact that this was literally behind someone's home. Really makes you wonder, what sort of stuff do I have out back of my home that I haven't come across yet? Number 2 on this list is the Strongsville skeleton. This is one where Reddit was able to get to the bottom of an icy cold case. What Culture writes, lots of interesting things have been discovered on Reddit, but this really takes the cake. The website helped find the identity of a skeleton based on research that was carried out a decade before the birth of the internet. Back in 1975, a trio of boys found a skeleton in the woods of Strongsville, Ohio. They further noted that the body was that of a white woman in her early 20s, but that was about all they could gather. Fast forward a few decades, and a woman called Christina Skates began uploading her research into the case on Unsolved Mysteries, another popular amateur detective site called Sleuths. Thanks to her information and the images of the skull, an artist called Carl Kopelman was able to put together a reconstruction of what the skeleton may have looked like when alive. The illustration ended up looking strongly similar to Linda Pagano, a woman who had been reported missing a year before the skeleton was discovered. DNA testing put this theory to task, and it was confirmed that the unidentified remains could now be identified as Linda. I can't imagine being that family of Linda and hearing literally almost 50 years later that those remains found so many years ago was her. Also too, just the story of the boys stumbling upon the skeleton, like, that's kind of creepy in its own right. It's still impossible to know who actually killed Linda, but being able to give the family some closure is still important nonetheless. And finally, number 1 on this list is the post-it note mystery. This one honestly really struck a chord with me and is truly terrifying. What Culture says, in 2015, Reddit user R. Bradbury 1920 posted to a legal advice thread asking what people thought of his predicament. He kept finding post-it notes around his apartment, and given that he lived alone, he figured that it must be his landlord leaving them when he wasn't in. This is a problem because usually you need to be alerted when your landlord is coming into your home, never mind if they plan on leaving things behind like cryptic notes. It became even more of a problem because it wasn't his landlord at all, and suddenly the man was faced with the real mystery of who was coming into his house and leaving notes for him. A bunch of theories were floated, even including multiple personality disorder, but eventually one stuck. It was carbon monoxide poisoning, causing him to forget that he had left himself notes. Sure enough, he installed a CO2 alarm and found that he was being slowly poisoned. If it weren't for the fellow user making the suggestion, that OP may have well ended up dead. Can you imagine being slowly poisoned and not knowing it at all? In your own home as well, where you're supposed to be safe. Then having that poison affect you so much that you're literally lying in this dreamlike state, forgetting everything that you do. This sounds like something written by the writers of Fight Club, honestly. It's just so creepy to me to think that someone can get to the point where they aren't even aware of their own actions anymore. Like, what if this is happening to me or you right now, and we just don't even know it because we keep forgetting? Really creepy stuff.